Okay, please be seated. Please be seated. Thank you. First up is the invocation. Pastor Gerald Ripley. Pastor.
Good morning. It's always a privilege to be invited to come and give the invocation, and I appreciate that opportunity. Notice that you have donuts this morning, and it's a much better menu for breakfast than roast. I'm a pastor, and maybe some of you have heard of roast pastor. It's usually served at lunchtime, not at breakfast time. But actually, I'm wondering if you might have had a serving, don't raise your hand for this one, of a roast president or roast mayor already today. Well, I have 4 verses here that I want to share with you. It's from 1 Timothy chapter 2 and first verse. Therefore I exhort first of all that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and all who are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and reverence. When Paul has used the word first there, he doesn't mean when you wake up in the morning that's the first thing you do. That is a particular word that means the most important thing you're going to do today, whether it's 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 10th, or 27th, is to pray for those who are in authority. That's what he's getting at. I've had people say to me, Gerald, it's really hard for me to pray for our president. And I nod my head and I say, it's hard for me also. However, I know this verse, and I just want to share with you the context of what was written. Nero was one of the worst rulers in the history of mankind. At least his reputation is that. He was the Roman emperor from 54 through 68 AD. And during his time, he had a reign of tyranny and extravagance. It's indicated that he had his own mother executed. It's suspected that he had his brother-in-law poisoned. There was a great fire that destroyed much of Rome in the year 64 AD. There's thinking and speculation that it was started by Emperor Nero himself so that he could clear some ground for state in his palace that he wanted to build. It was at this time, in that context, that Paul wrote what I read here. First of all, I exhort that supplications, prayers, thanksgivings, and giving thanks be made for all men, for all who are in authority. So he's, as hard as it is for me to pray for somebody that I live with, I think, man, to pray for him, Emperor Nero, would have been a greater challenge. Well, what do we pray? But first of all, verse 3 said, for this is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior. It's good that we pray for people who are in authority so we can live a quiet and peaceful life. That's what Paul is saying here. And then he said, who desires all men to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. Whatever our political persuasion would be, I believe that if we are people of God, we can pray for people to come to salvation and come to the knowledge of the truth. Wherever they are, whoever they are, that's a prayer that I can pray for anybody that I know. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for this instruction that you've given us. And thank you for letting us know that it was in a time of great persecution when it was written. I ask you to give us grace that we might pray for those who are in authority so that we could live a quiet and peaceful life. We do pray for salvation of our president, our mayor. We pray that they would come to knowledge of the truth. I pray your blessing upon this gathering today, that what is accomplished here would be for the good of your work in our city. We ask that in Jesus' name and thank you. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor. Would you please stand for the pledge? pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Well, I certainly welcome everybody taking time from your busy schedule to attend the HTA meeting. We have coffee and donuts in the back of the room there, if you would care for that. We have 4 speakers today, so I know you would like maybe to spend the whole afternoon, we'll say, the chief appraiser, or maybe the tax assessor, I don't know. But unfortunately, we're unable to do that. However, it's good to have them here. They can give us an overview of those things that are important in the case of the appraiser. The chief appraiser is how to properly protest. And then, of course, the tax assessor collector will tell you options for paying your taxes. Because the bottom line, if you don't pay them, I believe it's the first Tuesday morning of each month, your house will be auctioned at the Bexar County courthouse. I've been down there before. It's really, really sad. But that's the way the system is, at least for the present time. I did attend city and county meetings on property tax rates, because ultimately it's the politicians that set the rate. And by that I mean if your appraisal goes up 10% and your city council reduces the tax rate by 10%, it's a zero-sum game. In other words, your taxes won't go up, but that's not what's happening at all. I also testified before the Senate Property Tax Reform Committee. And, you know, if we have time at the end under closing remarks, I'll tell you how that went. You would be shocked at what the politicians had to say about your taxes. And I will certainly relay that to you, assuming we have time. Okay, so the agenda is like this. First up will be your appraisals with the chief appraiser, Mr. Mike Amosquita. And then how to pay your property taxes, different alternatives. And that'll be Mr. Albert Ureste. Then we have the electronic voting issues that were identified by Dr. Laura Presley up in Austin. She'll be here. And then the CPS smart meters. Mr. Stan Mitchell has been on top of this and done an outstanding job of financial analysis, etc., as to what's going to happen once they get these meters in. So if you will, Mr. Amosquita, if you would, please come up and tell us the good news, how our appraisal went down.
Good morning, everyone. Your appraisals went up. And Bob tells me I need to inform you guys how to protest. How many of you filed a protest before? Okay, so we're not going to go real basic. I will tell you this. Your values are set as of January 1st. Your values on your homes are based on market values in your neighborhood. That information is available to you after you file your protest. Back some years ago, I was able to give you the information in advance. The legislature has changed the law so that I can't give you any sales information, even on your very own property, unless you have an appeal pending. Now, I will tell you, if you will go to redfin.com, San Antonio, you'll see a map pop up, a very interactive map, so you can go specifically to your neighborhood and see what any homes that they have listed are listed for in your neighborhood. It's not redfin.com, San Antonio.
REDFIN?
REDFIN. Like a redfish, redfin.com, San Antonio. It's a national website that will show you listed properties, doesn't matter who the realtor is or whether it's a realtor or not, they even have for sale by owners in every neighborhood in the nation. And so you can see kind of what things are doing in your neighborhood. When you do file your appeal, if you are planning on appealing this year, I'd like to encourage you to come by the office next week. All week long, my assistant and several staff members have been working the front lobby. We've been having about 2,500 calls a day, so it's hard to get in if you're calling. That'll slow down next week. We've been having about 400 people a day through the door, every day. But I have 70 appraisers waiting to help you. So it's virtually no wait. You come in, you sign up, tell us you want to have an informal, we'll process your protest, and before you sit down, there'll be someone come from upstairs to take you on up and hold your informal. The most important thing you need to secure at that meeting, besides getting your value reduced if that's your intention, is to ask for our evidence packet. It's free of charge. It contains all of the comparable data that we use to value your property. At that time, if you have requests or questions about any other property or any other sales in the area, ask for them. This is the time to ask for it. I can give it to you. It's free of charge. The evidence packet is so important to you because it limits what I can present at the ARB, at the Appraisal Review Board. If I find more information before you come to your formal hearing, assuming we don't settle the value, by the way, 80% of the folks that come to an informal meeting settle their value. If you decide to go onto the board, that information packet is the only thing I can present to the board as a matter of law. So it's in your best interest to do your due diligence, secure that document, get all that information. Whether you're appealing that your property is overappraised, what we refer to as market value, all those comparables will be there. If you're appealing that your home is inequitably appraised, which is another way you can appeal in Texas, that is that it's not valued uniformly like other properties in your neighborhood that are similar to yours. That information will be in there. They literally will give you a listing of all the properties that are comparable to yours in your neighborhood. You'll see where the median is and where you are in relation to that median. Most residential property is pretty close. Anyway, next most important thing, everybody has their homestead exemption. If you're over 65, make sure you have your over 65 exemption. If you're a disabled vet and you're 100% service connected and unable to work, you don't pay property taxes in Texas anymore. Make sure you have that exemption. These are all very important things. If you're a surviving spouse of a formerly 100% disabled veteran in Texas, you're eligible to not pay taxes anymore in Texas, provided you are not remarried, you're still living in the same home, yada, 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 yada. All this information is available to you for free. It's on our website at www.bcad.org, and then my staff is always there to help you and answer any questions. When you decide to protest, how much time do I have? I don't want to...
I think we got about another 15 minutes.
Okay. If you decide to protest, the most important thing you're going to want to do is document anything you're claiming about your home. Nobody knows the value of your home better than you do, certainly not me. If you know you have a foundation issue, secure an estimate if you can. If you can't, take some pictures, really good pictures. If you decide to go to the review board, any evidence you present to my staff that you intend to show the board, you need to make copies in triplicate. Not my policy, it's the law. You have to leave it with the board, any information that you introduce. To my knowledge, in 35 years of being in this business, I've never seen anyone prosecuted for presenting false information. I don't know what the purpose of it is. Maybe they own a copy company, I don't know. But you have to do it. Any questions about that? Yes, sir.
You used to be able to request the informal hearing on the form itself.
Yes.
I didn't see that this year. It basically said, fill it out and we'll tell you what happened. What's up with that?
Informals are not a requirement of law. We always intend to do informals. To be honest with you, we try to eliminate as much rhetoric off the form as possible. It's a lot less dense than it was last year. I don't know if that actually got missed, but obviously informals are always available. We're encouraging folks to come in for walk-ins this next week. Yes, sir.
So you're saying that we have to go down there and
No,
and
no.
request it?
No, when you file your protest,
Yeah.
just like always, what's going to happen is you file your protest, you stick it in the mail, you do whatever, or you bring it down. All you're going to do is, once that notice gets processed, we're actually going to send you a letter that's going to give you 2 dates, the date for your informal and the date for your formal hearing. Obviously, if you settle, we'll cancel your formal. If you miss your informal, you still get the chance to go to your formal. But once we start the formally scheduled process, it's really tight to get folks in because we schedule probably 800 to 1,200 people a day.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions on that?
What
Yes, sir.
location do you go to?
I'm sorry?
What's your location?
Oh, man, I'm glad I had a business card.
Not on
The mailing address
No,
is,
the other, the
the
visit.
physical address is 411 North Frio, 78207. It's the corner of Martin and Frio, not real far from here. Yes, sir.
Yes, I've gone in for the formal hearing, and my evidence packet was one thing, but during the formal hearing, the Bexar County employee sits there on his terminal, he pulls up all sorts of data that I was not privileged to before the formal hearing.
Right.
And then I'm overruled by the committee chair because I'm not able to respond, and I only have 15 minutes.
Right.
And if I exhaust my 15 minutes, that's it.
You
I'm
know,
done.
the evidence that they present at the board, we've always used the monitors. You know, we have the big television screens up
I
there. So,
understand that, but I don't have in my packet.
right.
It comes up on the monitor, he spews out all sorts of stuff, prints it out instantaneously. I'm sitting there and I can't even analyze the data because I'm only given 15 minutes.
Right. That's a very good point.
Blindside.
Well, that's a good point, we can't hear.
He's concerned that when he goes to the review board in the past, we have large monitors in our meeting rooms, if you will, so that everybody can see what we're looking at. His concern is that if we're pulling up information that's not part of his evidence packet. I would suggest to you, if that's happening, that you should ask the chairman to stop the meeting and to stop that level of communication. As a matter of law now, if you decide to come in for an informal, for a formal hearing, and you wish to present electronic media, I have to make all of that media available to you. As a result, we probably are not going to be using too much electronic media if it gets to be an issue, simply because the people that are paid to do this professionally, the tax agents, that generally generate about 90% of all the appeals in Bexar County, they will simply keep us from certifying on time. You won't get anything done this year. So if push comes to shove, we'll just disconnect all the electronic media if necessary. Yes, sir.
For those that didn't hear, what I was saying is that I've gone in for the formal hearings. I'm given an evidence packet ahead of time, okay? I use the evidence packet and I prepare my analysis. I'm a licensed CPA. I go into the formal hearing and the Bexar County employee who's sitting there in front of a computer terminal and a printer, after I make my presentation, which I'm limited to set 15 minutes, he prints out all sorts of data, all sorts of additional analyses I wasn't given ahead of time. And then the committee of 3 cuts me off because I'm limited to 15 minutes. I cannot analyze and respond to what this individual. The last time I went through this process, I refuted one set of analyses. He goes back, he taps the keys, spews out more data. Again, he hands it out to the committee, he hands me my copy. I can't do anything. It's 15 minutes, I'm cut off, and then of course the committee makes their decision.
It's called an ambush.
Right.
That's an unfortunate situation. I will address that with my staff. One thing you have to remember is the review board is an independent panel of citizens. I don't have any control over them. As a matter of fact, it's against the law for me to communicate with them outside of a posted meeting.
You got a representative in that review board.
I do not. I do not. I have a staff member
Well, staff member, you've got somebody on your staff that didn't have to review a board meeting. You may have 2 or 3 disabled people there, but you still got your guy there.
That's what I said. I will take it up with my staff and make sure that this doesn't happen again, but I don't have any control over the review board. Yes, sir.
When you have a chance to review this with your board, would you be interested in sending a copy of the results to our CPA friend so he's aware of the steps you've taken?
I won't review it with the board. I will review it with my staff.
And the results of that can be shared with our CPA friend?
Absolutely.
In written. Terrific.
Sure.
You'll want his name and address then.
Absolutely.
You're Albert?
No, I'm Michael Lemesker. Mr. Ureski's over here.
I was going to say, you don't look like Albert. They only give him 15 minutes because they really don't want to hear what he has to say, and they want to just shut him up. And that's why they do that, and that's unfair.
The review board makes their own policies, and I've never really seen a hearing go 15 minutes. Most of the time, they go longer than that.
But giving him 15 minutes only.
Right, but that's typically what they do with residential property, and 20 minutes for commercial. The truth of the matter, sometimes they go on for hours.
So they're making that decision that fast, I mean, yeah.
That's the process. I will tell you that if you are unhappy with your outcome of your hearing, there are other methods for you to appeal, and that is through binding arbitration. Those binding arbitrations are very simple. If you believe you have a good case, if you pay your $500 to the controller's office, and if you win the case, you get your money back, everything except $50 for the administrative costs, and I have to pay that bill. I have to send the controller a check. But the truth of the matter is, that's simply a matter of, sometimes they're done teleconference-wise, sometimes they're done in person, whatever you choose. Whoever is closest, literally is what the law says, in value, is who prevails. So if I lose by $1, you win, I got to pay the price. And I paid probably 190 times this last year. Yes, ma'am.
Who sets your boundaries, your neighborhood boundary lines? Because in the past, I find it here compared to homes that are outside of the neighborhood.
Okay. Generally, the appraisers are the ones, she's asking who sets the boundaries for the neighborhoods. Boundaries are pretty much defined, sometimes in a newer part of town, by the master plan of the developer. A lot of times in the older parts of town, neighborhoods are defined by streets, creeks, bridges, highways, like we have downtown. I-10 divides, part of Woodlawn from the other side of Beacon Hill. Obviously not the same neighborhoods, even though Woodlawn runs through both. But the fact of the matter is, it's a judgment call, and it comes from appraisers that have worked the area for years and years. If you feel seriously that the home is being compared to the wrong properties, always ask to speak with their manager. That's the next thing you can do with my staff. Yes, sir.
I've talked to a few people about the assessments and that, and it seems that land is what's being valued up much more than anything else this year. What's the reasoning behind that? I mean, we're not selling our land. I can't farm my land. I mean, I've got a house on a lot,
Land values in Bexar County have gone up tremendously. There's been a number of sales where we have been actually in the newspaper for having a property valued at $70 million when it sold for $170 million.
Why?
Pardon me?
Why? That's what we want to know, why.
That sounds like your accountability, not for us to make up.
Right, but our accountability is based on us appropriately appraising property at market value, and so values do have to come up. That's just one
You're talking
situation.
about commercial property there, not residential.
I was giving an example, yes I was. But residentially, in Texas, we're required to appraise the land separately from the improvements. Don't ask me why. If you go sell or buy a home, unless you're building a custom home, you don't buy the lot and then, buy the house. You generally buy a piece of real estate, the land and all the improvements thereon. In Texas, I'm required to send you a notice that has a separate land value and a separate improvement value, and the total value must equal market value. And that is what it would sell for on January 1st, the appraisal date. The other thing it has to do is it has to be equally appraised with other properties that are similarly situated in your neighborhood. The answer isn't necessarily picking apart the appraisal. The bottom line is it right or is it wrong? Is it too high? Would I sell my property for that? Those are questions that you have to reason through yourself. Yes, sir.
Is there anything coming from the state that, possibility that will do away with taxes and go to a sales tax? And I got about 2 or 3 of them that I want to tie there together. And the school choice, in other words, I pay school taxes, the kids in my district are getting a terrible education. I would rather my tax dollar was allocated to some church or private school. Is anything about that coming? I know you advocated at state level.
Betty, I will tell you,
Anything about that?
I will tell you that's probably above my pay grade, but I will tell you also that the state of Texas cannot afford to do away with property taxes. The state of Texas can't even borrow money to pave the roads that we already paid for. So, we're in serious debt. We have the second highest per capita debt for local governments, including schools, in the nation. And that's because the state doesn't fund public education.
Worse than California?
Pardon?
Worse than California?
I don't remember who number 1 is, but we are right on up there. And we're also, I think we're dead last or maybe 47th in education. Yes, sir.
Do you base it on square footage in the area?
It's going to be a number of things. Obviously, we're going to base it on the square footage, the amenities that the home has relative to the other properties. Is it a typical 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage with a fireplace? Is this one an anomaly? Does it have a pool and nobody else has a pool in that neighborhood? Obviously, it's not a good comparable if that's the
The
case.
reason I ask is, I was down there one time for a challenge. And the individual I talked to said, well, your next door neighbor just sold his house for so much. I said, yeah, he's a 5-bedroom on the 3.
Right.
How can you make that? So I was wondering, how do they compare?
They literally, if you've had your home refinanced or if you bought a new home and had it financed, when the appraiser makes the adjustments to the property, they click off so much value per room, whether it's bedroom or bathrooms, whether it's a 2-car or a 3-car or a no-car garage, and the square footage. And there are adjustments that you can make for that. Typically, if you're in a 3-2 neighborhood, you don't have too many 5-bedroom homes also in that neighborhood. But if you do, that's probably not the best comparable. That's just the bottom line. Yes, ma'am.
Why doesn't Texas have a per capita tax so that these people that live in apartments with kids would pay taxes?
They do.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I would tell you that the folks that live in apartments do pay taxes. It's built into their rent, trust me. Some of the people that pay rent in my neighborhood have higher rent payments than my house payment.
As a veteran of 2 formal hearings and so forth, my question is, on the Board of Review members, my understanding is that your source of those members is retired teachers primarily. Is that correct?
Not even close.
Now, how do you question the qualifications of those board members in terms of their knowledge and education for the job that you're asking them to do and reviewing?
I'm not asking them to do anything, but they're absolutely out of my control. If I want to do anything with them, I literally have to sue them, just like you, if you're dissatisfied. But I will answer your question. In Texas, any of you are qualified, I can tell you right now, to be an ARB member. Mostly, we have a lot of realtors. They must not be very good because they can make a lot more money out working instead of being in my office. We have a lot of accountants. We have former lawyers. We have former engineers. I'm trying to remember. I believe, I don't know that I've ever had a school teacher on my, I may have, but I don't know. The truth of the matter is the selection process for the ARB has changed dramatically. A few years ago, the legislature made it so that in areas or urban areas where the population is over 500,000, obviously that's us, there's a local administrative law judge who appoints all the members to my board. The only board members that my board of directors have any control over is the chairman of the board and the secretary. They get to name the officers. They don't get to make policy. They don't get to tell them what to do. They don't get to tell them anything. If they don't show up for meetings more than, I think if they miss 20% of the meetings, they can be removed from the board. If they show, they passed a new law, if they show a strong level of bias for or against you, I can challenge them and you can challenge them by threatening to, you go to our taxpayer liaison officer, he can communicate with the judge. I can't even communicate with the judge. But if you have issues, you can bring those to him and he can take them to the judge. In fact, he's required to make a report of any complaints to the controller's office at the end of every year.
Well, in one of the hearings that I had, one of the members actually said she didn't know anything about the subject.
I'm
And
absolutely
then
certain that's true.
And then the next thing was I asked for a recording of the hearing, and that's not available to me.
It is absolutely available to you.
There is?
Yes.
Well, at the time I did this, they denied me a copy of the hearing.
How many years ago was that?
This about 5 years ago.
No way. Not possible. I will tell you this, if you have any information that you need from us and you can't get it the way you want it from my staff, or if you have a serious question, call my direct number. It's 210-242-2411. Your concern bothers me greatly, sir, and that I want to make sure we take that up with staff and get this taken care of. If we don't, I know we're not going to get to all your questions. My email is esca@bcad.org. I'll be happy to take your questions, and I'll be happy to write you back. esca@bcad.org. I don't know how I walked out of the house without cards, but I'm going to leave this card up here. All of my contact information is here. I'm sure Bob will let you look at it.
So the email is on the card?
It is.
All right.
And my direct phone number.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know we can take the whole day with our own personal questions, but I don't know how many pieces of taxable property there is in Bexar County, 700,000-800,000. And I'm sure Mr. Amasquita wouldn't be able to answer any specific questions. Okay, let's see.
Promise to answer the phone?
Excuse me, so we can go ahead. Thank you for that. So the city council didn't lower your rate. Your appraisal has skyrocketed. So now we get to the next stage, which is paying your taxes. Because again, I remind you, if you don't, well, your house will be sold on the Bexar County Courthouse steps. Next we got Mr. Albert Ureste, the Bexar County Tax Assessor Collector, who has been here before to an HTA meeting. Stand wherever you want.
I just need a microphone.
Doesn't have an off switch, so.
Whatever you say can be heard, right? Okay. So, my name's Albert Udeste. I'm the Bexar County Tax Assessor, and as you know, I'm an elected official. I'm elected county-wide. And so we're going to run through a slide presentation that we have. It's about 50 minutes long, but I think it'll answer a lot of the questions that you may have. Our mission statement is to help keep families in their homes with an emphasis on helping our senior citizens, our disabled, our veterans, and ultimately our children. We live this, we believe in this, our organization believes in this. It's something we do every single day. And before I continue, let me introduce our staff. I have Stephen Palacios, who's our Chief Deputy. I have Lisa Anderson, who's our other Chief Deputy. And I have David De Leon, who's our Director of Motor Vehicles. Our goal is to be the #1 tax office in the state of Texas, and we believe we are. We just matter of distancing ourselves from the other tax assessors. There's 254 counties in the state of Texas. Some of the things that we do, you'll see we collect over $3 billion per year. We have over a 98% collection rate. Really, it's over 99%, but we always leave a little buffer in there. We do 1.5 million vehicle registrations per year. Some of the changes, I've been in office now, this is my 4th year, and some of the things that we've done, when I ran for office, and I talked to a lot of groups, just like y'all, and I did go to y'all's group, and the 2 complaints that I heard the most was about that we had long lines, and that the people were rude. And I can tell you, those are the 2 things that I've worked the hardest on. I can assure you our lines are so much quicker, and Like any other organization, you're going to have a rude person, but I can tell you 99% of our people are very, very good. We've put in a queuing system. You see, we have, where you draw a number. And one of the things that we've done, we've also put in seating. We did this for several reasons. We did it, to help our senior citizens. We did it to help our disabled. But we also did it for the dad or mom that shows up with, 2, 3 kids. Even if you're in line for 5 minutes, that can be a challenge when you got kids pulling on you. So we did it there. They can sit them down, and I can tell you, literally, we have gotten hundreds of compliments on the chairs. People are very happy about that. We do a lot of community outreach, just like we're doing this morning. We do 661,000 statements per year. And one of the things that we found, we thought, kind of everybody had a mortgage company. They send their payments in, they take out their taxes, they take out their insurance. Well, we found out that out of the 661,000 accounts, only about a third actually have a mortgage company where they filter out their payments. So what we did, we developed some other programs to help those that don't have a mortgage company. January 31st, that's the same every year. That's drop dead date for paying your property taxes. It never changes. It's the same every single year. Payment options, we have a half payment option. We have about 75,000 people that take advantage of this. It's very popular. People come in, they pay half of the tax November 30th, and they pay half the other half June 30th. The only drawback to this was that sometimes people forget the second payment, so we developed some automatic payments, so once you pay it, it'll automatically take it out June 30th, and it'll give you about 2-3 day notice. So this is very popular, and it continues to grow. If you're over 65, if you're disabled, if you're a veteran with a disability, or you're a surviving spouse, by law, you're allowed to pay your property taxes in 4 payments. It's called quarter payment plan. But we weren't satisfied with this. I saw my parents struggle. I've seen, my relatives struggle. I do a lot of block walking. I go to thousands of homes, and I see how senior citizens are struggling in order to pay their taxes. So we developed another plan. We developed the 10-month payment plan. This allows our senior citizens to pay their taxes in 10 payments per year. Again, there's 254 counties in the state of Texas. We're the only county that has this program. Not Dallas, not Houston, not anybody else. We are the only ones that have this program. Something we're very, very proud of. And we made it very easy to use, as you'll see on the next slides. This is your statement that you get from us. This is what we'll send you. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you the bottom part. So again, if you're over 65 or a disabled veteran, you're going to get this statement here, and you're going to get 4 choices. On the top one is going to be the 10-month payment plan. That's a half payment plan. That's a quarter payment plan. That's a full payment plan right there. So we're going to send this to you. We also realize that a lot of our seniors aren't necessarily computer literate, and actually in Bexar County, it's very unfortunate that we have about 60% of our homes do not have a computer in their residence. Everybody seems to think that, hey, everybody has a computer, everybody has an iPhone. Well, that's not the case. So we wanted to make this as easy as possible. We worked on it, developed it. It took us over a year to develop it. So what we do now, you'll get this statement in the mail. All you have to do, if you're a senior citizen, if you're disabled, you pick the one you want. $22, whatever one you want to pick, whatever plan you want to pick, you send us a check for $22, okay? When you get that, when we get your check, we're automatically going to put you on that payment plan, and we're going to send you some statements. You don't have to do anything. There's no contract. You don't have to come see us. You don't have to call me. You don't have nothing. And then I'm going to send you 9 of these, and it's going to have your monthly payment of $22, which yours may be higher, obviously, I know that, but it's going to be $22, and that's all you have to do. That's it. There's nothing else to do for this program. And if you can go back 1 slide. And also, if you're not over 65 and you sign up for the half payment plan, you just send us a check for that, and we're also going to put you on this payment plan, and then we'll send you the bill June 30th. Again, you don't have to do anything. So we've really worked hard in developing our programs. Yeah, well, we're still trying to find that guy. We don't know who he is.
That's my house, by the way.
Oh, that's your house. There you go. We found him. I was going to say it, but I didn't know that was appropriate to say that around this group, so I kind of held back. So. Payment methods, there's a lot of different payment methods. Obviously, you can still come in person, you can do by mail, you can do on the internet, and you can do by phone. And also, more and more, people are doing on their phones. I'm not at that level yet where you can go to and pay with your phone and do all these other things. Only thing I've learned to do on my phone is my wife made me learn how to look up the JCPenney coupons. So I learned how to do that, and but that's the only thing I've learned so far. But I mean, everybody's doing everything on their phones nowadays. So and we're preparing for that. I'm sorry, sir.
If you pay by computer, don't you charge extra?
I'm sorry, sir?
If you pay by computer, do you charge extra? I think you do.
It depends, and we'll get to that slide in a minute, and I'll show it to you, but it depends on how you pay, okay? So we'll get to that slide in just a minute. Okay, and here's that slide. The reduced fees. We have been, not only, we know you encumber the having to pay the taxes, so we also wanted to help in trying to make it as I hate to use the word cheap, but trying to make it as cheap as possible to make your payment. So what we did is we negotiated, and as far as we know, we have the lowest credit card transaction fee in the state of Texas. And this is what you're referring to, it's 2.10%. The debit fee is $1.50. We haven't found a tax assessor's office less than $3.95. I'm sure they're out there, but we haven't found. And if you pay with a check or through your savings account, it is free. So we also negotiated this. So these are things that we've done to reduce the fees for our citizens. Automatic deductions, you can do it by credit card, which will have the transaction fee. You can do it to your savings, which will be free. And you can do it to your checking account, which will also be free. Pretty soon you'll be able to do everything on the internet. We're not quite there yet. We've been working towards that, and we hope to have phase 2 completed, within the next several months. You remember earlier that I mentioned that a lot of people don't have mortgage plans, and this is very important, especially if you have a business or if you have your home paid off. So what we wanted to do was try to make it as simple as possible, and this allows you to set up a payment plan, an escrow account, if you will. So you come in, you say, hey, I want to pay my next year's taxes, and then you set up 6 months payment plans. So you set it up, you make your payments, pay July comes around, I'm going to go on vacation, I can't pay my taxes in July. No harm, no foul, because you're paying in advance. In October, we'll send you a bill for the remainder, and with that, you can pay the balance off. So it's a really good program if you don't have a mortgage company, if your home is paid off, even if your home is not paid off, and or if you have a business. And more, a lot of mortgage companies are now starting to have you pay your taxes separately. So this is a great program. I have a question on the back.
So that's it. How much interest will we earn by depositing the money into an escrow account?
You don't. Yes, anybody can qualify for this prepayment plan.
Do you have an incentive to pay early?
No, there used to be one, but I believe there are some counties in the state that do that, and most of them are rural communities because they need to get the money quickly. But here, the school districts and the city and all of them decided that they weren't going to do it because they felt like they were losing too much money. Okay, exemptions. You heard Mr. Mesquita refer to these. These are some of the things that we do. We have a homestead, we have age 65 and over, disability, veterans with disability, and tax freeze, and I'll get into these in just a minute. I'm sorry, go back one slide. We talk about ways trying to save money. One of the ways that you can save money on your taxes is to appeal your property taxes, and you can reduce the amount there. The other way you do is to make sure you have all your exemptions. The homestead exemption, that if you live in your home, if that's your primary residence, you're entitled to a homestead exemption. This year for the school districts, it went from $15,000 to $25,000. If you're 65 and over, you qualify for that. If you're disabled, if you're a veteran with disability, and of course then there's a tax free. I can tell you that what keeps us going, why we continue to do this we do this continuously, reaching out to different groups, is because every time I go, and today I'll find somebody here, Monday somebody will call us, and we're going to find, well, maybe not this group, okay, but and as a rule, we're going to find some senior citizen does not have their exemptions. It's been paying their taxes for 20 years at the higher rate. Yeah, we're going to find, we find it all the time. This is what keeps us motivated on reaching out.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
If I'm already in for the 65 and over, do I need to also file for a homestead and get a further reduction?
Yeah, you can get the homestead, and I don't believe you can get the age 65 and over unless you have a homestead. You have to have the homestead to get the 65 and over. So you would have to have both of them. The only two you cannot get together is 65 and over and disabled. You can only have one or the other.
Well, I'm asking you, I'm already in for the 65. Should I file for a homestead?
No, you already have a homestead.
Mr. Rusty, if you could repeat his question, it's hard for us to hear the questions back.
Okay, his question was, if he has a 65 and over, does he also have to qualify for the homestead? If you have the 65 and over, you already have a homestead. Is that correct, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that, I just want to make sure I'm right on that.
No,
You can,
what it does, what happens if you're 65, but you're not living in that home?
if you're not living in that home, you cannot get a 65 and over exemption. It has to be your residence.
You have to be living in it physically.
Yes. Unless, I mean, there are some exceptions. Let's say, for instance, you know, you go to a nursing home, but you have the intent of returning to your home, you know, that you could continue to keep it. There are exceptions, but, you know, as a rule, you have to live in your home to get the 65 and over exemption.
So you can't just own it and not live somewhere else?
Correct.
Okay.
Sir, if you have homestead and then you turn 65, does it matter if you have one or both? Does it affect it, or is it the same if you have both?
As far as what, ma'am? I'm sorry.
Well, you said we claim homestead, which we have, and now we're both over 65.
It is supposed to be automatic. I can tell you there are times that it is not automatic. You know, when you turn 65, you know, it's supposed to kick into gear on that, but sometimes it does not. You want to elaborate on that a little bit, Mike?
Sure. A few years ago, the legislature required us to find out how old you were, and we're supposed to track you. And I'm pretty sure how we do that. I know I pay a lot of money to some service companies to track as much information as we can. As soon as we get that on your birthday, that's your now. You used to have to qualify on January 1st, and now you qualify on your birthday. So you get the benefit of that whole year, the year that you turn 65. We will send you the application. You still need to send that back in, and we need to have a copy of your driver's license or your ID, and it needs to match your home address, and it will process it. But we're supposed to track that.
Yeah. And back to what I was saying, though, I can tell you that for whatever reason, you know, I don't know, but they don't respond or what have you, but I can tell you we continuously find people that are 65 and over and don't have the exemptions.
Mr. Rusty, do we have any historic exemptions? I don't see any historic.
There are some, and that's more of a tax exemption. It's a tax abatement that goes through with the city. So it is, I mean, there are some available. I'm not that well versed on it, but I know like some of these people that are moving, like say on Pine Street that are, you know, redeveloping that area, there are some abatements available through the city.
Nothing comes up in your department?
Not in our department. I don't know. I don't think we have anything in your department either, right? Okay.
Well, they're listed historic on their historic, so you're saying.
Okay, so I'm going to continue here and we'll hold the questions for a little bit because I want to get through some of these things. I've been told I have 5 minutes, so I need to hurry up before the president kicks me out of here. Okay, can we go on? Tax freeze. Once you turn 65, if you're paying $1,000 a year, you're going to pay $1,000 a year for the rest of your life. Now, there will be some fluctuation. If you can see here, the school district, the county, the city, the Alton College District, they all participate in this tax freeze. The River Authority and the Hospital District do not. but they're a lower rate, so it's going to fluctuate somewhat, but it's not going to fluctuate as much. So when you turn 65, you know, unless you make additions to your home or if you move, you can transfer some of this, but you're going to pay the same amount of taxes forever. So it's a safety net for our seniors. Tax deferrals. Okay, this is one of those where I show this. This is not designed to help those people that live in the Dominion. You know, this is not designed to help those people that have $1 million in the bank. This is designed for those people that are having problems buying their medicine, buying their food. This is what this is designed for. Now what this does, if you're in a situation where you're facing a lot of financial difficulties, you can apply for a tax deferral. And what that means is you don't have to pay property taxes for the rest of your life. Now there is a catch, and I will tell you this, if you want to leave your house to your kids, when you sell your house or pass away, whatever, your kids have 181 days to pay those property taxes. If they don't pay them, all the discounts and everything, everything you saved is going to come back. As long as your family understands that, you know, if you pass away, that they have 181 days to make good on what you owe, because remember, it's a deferral. They're not, your taxes aren't just being erased. But if you're having problems buying your food, buying your medicine, this is a great tool.
Is there any interest charged on the deferral?
Yeah, there is, but it's a lesser interest charge. Whereas if it's 12%, it is 8%. But there's no penalties, and that's a good thing. And even if you're not going to do this, a tax deferral is a good thing, because if you get sick, you go in a nursing home, you know, and nobody's taking care of your bills, it'll allow your penalties and your interest to be a lot less. So we encourage all our seniors to get on this tax deferral, not necessarily to use it. All right, so I'm going to run through the rest of this real quick. I show you this because it's important for you to explain to your children how easily you can get in tax trouble. If you'll see, January 31st, the day I talked about, I used this example. The average home probably pays about, it's higher than this, probably about $4,000. But if your taxes are $1,000 in January, and then you're late, you're going to get a 7% hit in February, March, April, May, keeps going up, and then July you'll get a 15 to 20%. So you'll see what was $1,000 now $1,416. That's a 41% hit in a matter of 6 months. This is why it's so important to explain to your people, your loved ones, your relatives, your friends, how easily you can get into tax trouble. Facing difficult times, I can tell you, if you or your family, anybody is in, tax trouble, and I know you jokingly referred to, we're going to take away your house, but I can tell you, I don't want your house. I can tell you that, and my staff can tell you, that I have never, ever turned anybody away that comes into my office to make a payment arrangement. If you come in, if you're sincere, there's going to be a down payment required. But I can tell you that I have never, ever, and never will turn anybody away that's in tax trouble, as long as the effort is made by them. Okay, real quick. Appraisal district, they set your property values, they do the value protest hearings, they're responsible for the exemptions. Taxing entities, these are the ones that set the tax rate. School districts, cities, counties. The school's the biggest one, obviously, as you all know. Tax attorney, they collect the delinquent taxes, they're hired by taxing entities. Tax assessor, nice guy, always remember that one. Collects the taxes, motor vehicle registrations, and title transfers. Okay, this is we did this in order to kind of follow up on that commercial everybody been seeing. This is when you think you live here, but your value notice reads like you live here. So, and this is kind of what everybody's looking at right now. So we just wanted to throw that in as, kind of.
Is your house?
No, that's a tax appraiser's house right there. May 31st is your deadline to file your protest. So that's a very, very important day. And if you have your house went up over $1,000, you're going to receive an appraisal notice. And I believe the appraisal district said we have 661,000 accounts. I believe it was over 500,000 appraisal value increases notice that went up. I'm done. Okay, so we're done. Here's the tax office locations, and I think we have one more slide. This is our last slide. Bibliotech. If you haven't used this is a great tool. It's a bookless library. We have the only bookless library in the United States. We've had people from all over the country, all over the world come over to look at it, and it's pretty cool. You can check out a book online, and it's great. If you haven't been there, you need to visit it. You can get online. It's free to all Bexar County citizens. Thank you very much. I'm out of time, and I really appreciate it. I don't know if we're going to be able to take questions.
We'll be around after the meeting for a little bit if you have any questions.
Yeah, I know people. Like I say, we could run 4 hours, maybe all day, on one. But we've got 4 speakers, so maybe you get a little bit more information. Let's see, we've got board members here. We have Janet Ahmad over here. And hey, Janet. In the back, we've got Jack, the Hammer Finger. And next to him is Michael Dennis. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all your help. So, as you can see, taxes are going up as a result of the appraisals because don't expect any mercy from elected officials, school boards, city or county. And of course the city has a lot that they need. You know, they want to build a $100,000 toilet downtown. Now, once that one's in, then the Express News editorial board's going to say, wow, that was the greatest thing that ever happened. We need more. So you can see how this will go. A $75 million stadium for minor league baseball, of all things. Doesn't make any difference, we already have a minor league baseball stadium, but you know, if one's good, 2 must be better. We have about the highest debt of anyone. Texas is a major debtor state. We owe everybody. The government has, and not only did they tax and spend, they borrowed and spend. It's not a good deal for us if you're on the tax end of tax and spend. Certainly we would invite anybody that's not a member of HTA to join. We have some applications there at the table. And Jack will pass around we have a couple of cans. Obviously there's no charge, but if you can make a voluntary donation, we'd sure appreciate it. It's not cheap putting on a meeting, and of course there's no requirement that you pay anything. But if you can afford a little, it would be a big help. For those that want to pay their dues, let Jack know so he can write down your name and get the proper information. We'll take about a 5-minute break. A reminder, there's coffee and donuts in the back there. And then we'll resume at 11:05 with Dr. Laura Presley and the Austin saga of votes. What happens to the votes? Okay, 5 minutes. Can y'all hear me in the back there?
Yes.
Please be seated. Good job. Thank you so much. Okay, the next speaker on the agenda is Dr. Laura Presley, and she's going to tell us, she's in Travis County, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what do they call it, Babylon by the Colorado? So anyway, you want to come up here, Dr. Presley? You can stand anywhere you want. You're not a prisoner.
Not yet. Hey, Doc.
Yes, sir.
Go up there, then we can see you better.
Should I stand up here? It might be hard for me to see the...
She wants to see that board.
I won't be able to see the board, so...
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for having me. I'm Dr. Laura Presley, and I'm from Austin, Texas. I ran for the City Council in 2014, and we caught Travis County corrupting our electronic vote.
How many in here really love electronic voting and trust it?
I don't see any hands.
That's about what I usually see when I go present. I've been presenting our case across the state for about the last 9 months. And what's happening in Travis County for the electronic voting is going on all across the state. So what I want to show you is I'm first going to walk through the election laws. What did the Texas legislature intend for these electronic voting machines? And where are we falling short? And then I'm going to talk about our case. I'm the first candidate in the state of Texas that's filed an election contest showing how these electronic voting machines were corrupted, and backup records to prove what the computer said we voted does not exist. And Travis County told judges not to print the records. How many in here have been election judges? Anybody been an election judge here in Bexar County? Oh, I love y'all. I love election judges. Because when you see this, you're going to see what's going on. So I ran for city council, and I was slated to win. Austin just went to 10 districts, and so we were broken up. And I live in one of the poorest districts in the city, in the Runberg area. And we have a lot of prostitution, we have a lot of gangs, we have a lot of crime, and we're sick of the taxes in Austin. We can't live there anymore, and so we're sick and tired of it. So I was slated to win the race. The polls showed me winning over 55%. We had electioneers at every polling location in my district. People were high-fiving us, kissing us. You've got this, Laura. You're in the bag. And on election night, the results came in, and my opponent, a 24-year-old who had just moved into Austin 2 years prior, somehow beat me 2-1. Somehow. And there's no way. There's no way this kid beat me. I knew I won. So I went back and I started looking at the data. I spent 17 years in the semiconductor industry in Austin. And I have 4 U.S. patents on computer technology, and I've managed engineers, and I've had papers. So I'm not the person you want to mess with computerized voting. I know a little math. My PhD's in chemistry and physics. And so I'm going to show you what we found and let you decide for yourself. Okay, next. Here, well, in Travis County, we use the HART system, the HART intercivic system. You ever wonder what happens to your vote when you cast it on that electronic machine? Where does it go? It's an interesting question, right?
Cyberspace.
Cyberspace, well, almost.
So a 24-year-old.
Almost. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you hold the questions to the end, let's get through this and hang on to your questions. But what happens is, go back one. What happens is you vote on the machine. You guys vote on the ES&S machine. It's a little different than this, but the system is very similar. You vote on the machine, it goes onto a memory card. Where do those memory cards go? They go down to the county and they get counted. Imagine if you're a big city like Houston, they have 1,000 precincts. If you want to steal an election, do you want to worry about going to all those precincts and all those judges? Or would you want all the cards to come to you at that main computer? You got it. If you're an engineer, you do things efficiently. That's how we found it being done. At the main computer, we saw problems. So that's it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Next. In Texas, we have the best election code that I've seen in the country. And I want to start out with the very most important election law that we have. And it says, in Texas, the vote is by an official ballot. You can't vote on any old piece of paper in the state of Texas. And thank God for the legislature for that. Official ballot. So what's an official ballot? Next. The legislature actually tells us what a ballot is. One more. You have to have a serial number on that ballot. It has to be traceable. Very interesting. It's in the state constitution and it's in our election code. Next. You also have to have the name and date of the election on the ballot. Well, who knew? How simple. Next. And you have to have voting squares. You know the squares that you have to the left of every candidate's name? That's required by law. And every candidate's name has to be on the ballot. Next. You have to have voting instructions. One more. So we didn't believe our results. And so we did a recount in Travis County. And interesting, and probably here in Bexar County, you get to do absentee ballots, right? Absentee voting. And then you do electronic. We recounted the absentee ballots, and who knew that it was an exact tie. 240 to 240, exactly 50%. So the paper ballot showed not the 2-1. Okay, exactly tied. When we recounted the electronic ballots, that's where the 2-to-1 came into play, and it was not consistent with the mail-in result. And so we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, go back one. What I want to show you is the paper ballot has a serial number. It has boxes. My name's on the ballot. You have the date of the election, December 16, 2014, and the name of the election. It meets the criteria for an official ballot. Okay, next. So there's 3 things that have to be there to prove what the computer said we voted. The legislature, again, God bless the legislature for putting Band-Aids around this thing, and backup records so for checks and balances. Okay, click. You have to have a computer, one more, that actually adds up all those cards. So what are the components for the electronic voting that are in the law? You have to have a computer. You have to have a precinct return. Election judges, who are the election judges here? You have to print the tape. There's a results tape at the end of the voting that's required by law. It's chapter 66 of the election code. You have to print a tape on election day of what each candidate received and the number of votes they got, okay? The third thing is a really interesting thing that candidates have known that there's been a problem over the last 13 years with electronic voting in the state of Texas. You have to have a ballot image for a recount. Well, what's a ballot? Serial number, boxes, all the candidates' names, date of the election, name of the election. That's a ballot. Well, you got to have an image of that. What's an image? A picture. Pretty common, right? JPEG, bitmap, PDF. Those are pictures. Those are images. You also have, so in the election code, you have to have ballot image storage for this electronic voting system. You have to have images of ballots cast for the recount, and that's what we wanted to recount. And actually, the system was certified. And it shows you a ballot when you see it, right? You see a ballot when you vote. Okay, pretty simple. Next. I want to talk about these tapes a little bit. So, 3 areas of the election code talks about these tapes. And people who haven't been election judges, what happens is when they close the polls, you have the thermal tape that prints the results, and you deliver those to the county. And to not give it back to the county is a misdemeanor. When you're an election judge, it's a serious business. We're not playing Monopoly when we're being election judges. Next. One more. What I want to show you is what a results tape looks like. This is one from Travis County back in 2012. This is when Cruz and Dewhurst were running for U.S. Senate. And you can just see each candidate's result is there. And why do we print this tape? We print it in case there's a problem with the equipment as it goes down to the county and gets final counted. You have a backup record, and judges sign it, poll watchers sign it, and it's a backup record. Next. Let's hold the questions to the very end. It's a good question, but hang on. Even the Secretary of State says for judges, for DREs, which is direct recording electronic voting, you have to have, there's 3 envelopes that are returned to the county, and you have to have the results tape, results tape, results tape. Even the Secretary of State says Chapter 66 requires that tape. All right, and it's a misdemeanor to not return it. Next. Travis County in our election told the judges, don't print the tape. Oh. Click one more. They told them, number 7, don't print the tally. Wow, 3 records are required and 1's missing. Where's the tape? Big problem, and it's a misdemeanor for those judges not to turn it in, and they told them not to turn it in. Yeah, okay, that's what, and this is not just going on in Travis County, this is going on across the state of Texas. Next. So why didn't she print the tape? Why did the clerk tell the county, the election judges not to print the tape? Well, the Secretary of State is giving waivers to not print the tape across the state of Texas. Well, who knew? And why did they do that? Because there's county-wide voting centers across the state, and to print that tape just takes too long. Don't worry, don't do it. Here in Bexar County, do y'all still have precinct voting, or do you do county-wide? Precinct. Hang on to it like it's gold. Okay? Because county-wides are getting waivers to not print their tapes. And you open the door for fraud when the checks and balances are missing, right? Okay. Next. So we asked the county clerk, how can the Secretary of State tell you to not follow law. And she said, oh, they can do that. And she said, well, that's not the final law that's in the statutes. We said, what is? My lawyer's really good. So go back. And she said, there's additional instruction directions from the Secretary of State's office that says we don't follow that law, we do something else. And my lawyer said, you mean the Secretary of State can tell you not to follow law? And she said, absolutely, exactly, they can. Who knew that the Secretary of State's office could tell the counties not to follow law? This is a landmark case, guys.
Washington doesn't.
Seems like it, doesn't it? Yes. And so we asked her again, okay, are you sure? She's like, absolutely. The Secretary of State can tell me not to follow law. All right, so that one record's missing. Okay, next. Let's talk about the ballot image. Now, this is a big, big issue because this law says that, this is the law about computerized voting, and it says you have to have ballot image storage. What's a ballot? Serial number, boxes, all the candidates' names, date of the election. That's important information, right? Ballot image storage has to be, this computer system has to be able to do that. This law came in 1997. It's been there a long time and it's never been amended. Next. Also, in the recount statutes, it says you have to have images of ballots cast for the recount. And that's what we asked for in our recount. We didn't want to just have the computer add it up again. No way. We wanted, I thought something's wrong. This is simple. I won. Let's figure out what happened. The county said, well, Ms. Presley, we don't have the tape. And we don't have the ballot images. And by the way, no electronic voting in the state can keep a ballot image. But we can give you something else. We can give you something called a cast vote record, which is nowhere in the election code anywhere. And I said, well, what's a cast vote record? Next. So she gave us these, and we counted 4,000 of these in our recount. Click one more. This is a printout, one per page of what the main computer said the result was. It's called a data structure. Anybody here know computers? A data structure. It's not an image file. So she produced this one per page, and candidates across the state have known this for over 13 years. They cannot get a real recount. They get this cast vote record. Look at the data on this. Do you see a serial number on that piece of paper? Do you see the date of the election on that piece of paper? I was in the election, my name's not on it. There's no boxes. All the candidates' names are not there. There's no serial number. There's no date. This is what's being provided, guys, to candidates when they want to recount. And everybody has known this has been a problem, but people didn't know what to do with it. When I saw this, I said, stop the presses. You're breaking the law. We're going to file a lawsuit. Where's the ballot images? Okay? We're the first candidate in the state of Texas. This is a landmark case of first impression across the state, holding counties accountable. This is not a ballot. It's not an image of a ballot. It's not even an image file from a computer science standpoint. It's a data structure. It's the same thing that was counted in the first time. Okay? It's not there. Next. One more. Okay, so even the Secretary of State says in this waiver, well, don't print the tape because ballot images remain on the equipment. Right here he says it's hard to read. Ballot images remain on the voting machines for recounts. Well, where the heck is it? Because the Secretary of State is saying that cast vote record is a ballot image. We're saying it is not. It doesn't meet the statute that I just showed you for a ballot. Okay? We are currently in the appeals court of Travis County in the Third Court of Appeals right now because this type of case is very unique. And we had a great question from one of the appeals judges. She asked, go back one if you will, please. She asked our opposing counsel, well, go back, there we go, right there. She said, how do I know Ms. Presley was even on the ballot with this thing? That's a great question. Because it doesn't show my name, and I was in the election. So that was a good question the appeals judge asked. Okay, let's go forward. Skip one more, skip one more. Even Travis County's own website, it's hard to read, says that the e-slate captures an image of each ballot cast. Well, where is it, Travis County? We think it's on the equipment. It was certified to it. Where is it? Next. I have 4 U.S. patents on computer technology, so I know how to read patents. So I went to the Hart InterCivic Patents, and it says it can do it. The patents say it can keep a ballot image. Next. One more. Even when the equipment was certified, the software was certified. This is the Secretary of State's office, ballot image system for recount. It was certified with it. Where is it? Where is it, Secretary of State? Where is it, Travis County? Where is it, Bexar County? Okay, next. Next. One more. Okay, now that's the law. There are 3 records that are supposed to be retained. The ballot image and the tape, well, they're both missing in my race. So we went back and said, what's wrong with the tabulation? We think there was something wrong with the counting. Okay, skip one more. One more. So, go back one. So we had, how many here worked on campaigns? A lot of people. You know, during early voting, we get lists of who voted. So you take them off your block walking, and you take them off your phone banking so you don't bother them, they've already voted. So we had, as a candidate, we had lists of people who early voted. And when the results came out, we had the number of ballots that were cast in early voting by precinct. Interesting, every precinct in my district had more ballots cast than names who had early voted. I know math. You know, that doesn't work. So this was the first thing that gave us we knew that tabulation was off. So we go back one. So here's the precincts. These are the number of ballots that were cast. These are number of voters' names on the rolls, and these are the more ballots than names. You can't be more than 2 off by law. Travis County was off in almost every single one. That's a fingerprint of a hack. Because when a computer targets a percent and goes backwards, it doesn't do it perfectly. This is a fingerprint. Okay, next. So who in here likes math? Anybody? Ooh, I love it. I'm good at math and I love math, so bear with me on this. This is my favorite part of the presentation. So I know Excel, and I did a bunch of analysis on our voting and the results that happened. And there was a general election we had in the city council race. There were 8 candidates, me and my opponent, and then 6 others. And then we had a runoff. Myself and my opponent went to the runoff. And so I was up one night and I'm like, if I'm going to steal an election, how would I do it? And engineers, we work off of what's called the 80-20 rule. Okay, y'all heard the 80-20 rule. So what I did, I looked at where did 80% of the voters vote? In which precincts? And I'm going to focus on those and see if I see some patterns. So 9 precincts comprised 80% of where voters voted. And I noticed, I looked at my votes and my opponent's vote, and this is a little unique way to do it. I ignored the other 6 candidates. I just looked at he and I. My votes, his votes, and what my percent was. And then in the runoff, what my percent was in the runoff. What I noticed was shocking. 3 precincts stayed exactly the same percent.
It's impossible.
Impossible, yes. And 4,000 voters are trotted out. It's not the same voters, guys. Almost half didn't vote in the runoff. 3 precincts stayed exactly the same. That doesn't make sense. So I had a statistician who was working with our lawsuit, said, Laura, do this. And here's where the math comes in. Plot on the x-axis what you got in the general and the y-axis what you got in the runoff and see if there's a correlation. Okay, pretty simple. And do that with other candidates and see kind of how it looks. Okay, next. And this is what we found. I was District 4. This is District 6. We did the analysis on his race, same as mine. General on the X, Y is the runoff. You see kind of scatter plot next. This is District 7. I was District 4, kind of scatter plot, no correlation next. This is another district, and this one's mine. It's a straight line. That's not normal. My engineering eye says that was a program. This is where the 2-to-1 program came into play. And when we say cracking the code, this is what we mean. We found the program. This is what it's supposed to look like. Random, scatter plot. We think there was a program on that main computer that was being loaded and said go 2-to-1 instead of what it should have been. So in our lawsuit, and you know, I worked in the semiconductor industry, Motorola in Austin for 17 years, and I would shut down $1 billion factory with data less correlated than that. So my engineering eye knew what I was looking at. And not everybody would know that, okay? It's kind of a perfect storm. So what we did in our lawsuit, we said, okay, there's no tape to prove what the result is. There's no valid image. We think the main computer was corrupted. And so what happened was we asked for the audit logs of the main computer, and you're allowed to get that in a lawsuit. We're the first candidate in the country that's ever gotten these audit logs of these voting machines, ever in the last 15 years, because you can't get them without a lawsuit. And you can't get into a lawsuit without a lot of data and evidence. And money, I'm telling you, trust me on that. So we asked for the audit logs and we got them next. So remember, your vote goes, you go on the machine, it goes on the card, and the card goes down to the county to the main computer. So we got those audit logs, and I'll show you what we saw. Next, click one more. We saw corruption errors 9 times on election night at the main computer. If you'll click, just keep clicking until you get to the bottom here. Okay, one more. Corrupt error, corruption, corruption, corruption. This is a time date stamp of those corruption errors. Not only were these corruption errors being registered, they were being registered right before my precincts were being loaded. Not random. Corruption error, my precincts, actually my top one. Corruption error, my precincts. Corruption, my precinct, corruption, my precincts. Was not random. We think that corrupt card could have had a program on it, say go 2-to-1 for Ms. Presley. So we asked the judge, we said, can we get to the memory card that is corrupted? And he said no. We said, can we take the deposition of the guy putting this card in 9 times on election night? Was it 9 cards or 1 card? He said no. He said, and by the way, Ms. Presley, we're dismissing your case because you have no evidence. No evidence, summary judgment. That was shocking to us. We believe we have evidence. We have more evidence than any candidate in the country. No one's ever gotten what we got. So we respectfully disagree with the judge. Click one more.
Democrat.
He was not. He was a judge who had lost his re-election. He's a Republican from Burnett County, and he was appointed to our case. We disagreed with him. So we had an expert witness, Dr. Jacobson, who had a PhD in computer science, and he was our witness, and he looked at all the data, and he had looked at some reports about these electronic voting machines that have been, they were written about 8 years ago, and this corrupt card was a documented hack scenario in this report from a Rice University professor and Stanford University. And in that report from 2007, they said, an adversary may introduce corrupt mobile ballot boxes into the legitimate flow of mobile ballot boxes from the precincts back to Election Central, and this could damage the credibility of the vote counting process. It was a documented scenario. We thought we had evidence. We know we had evidence. Click one more. So we wanted to get the audit log of where those main counting cards were being loaded and being programmed. So we got that. So these mobile ballot boxes, this is the same one that was corrupt. Click one more, please. It was loaded on 11/21 and then logged out 10 days later. My computer logs out after 15 minutes. What does your computer do? The county had it logged on for 10 days straight. Were there entries missing between here? Who had access to this card? Next. Another error, same corrupt card from the files below, loaded on 12/1, logged out on 12/10, 9 days later. That's early voting. What was going on that corrupt mobile ballot box 10 days and 9 days straight at the county? We think we have evidence.
Illuminati.
Huh?
Illuminati.
Something was going on. hang on, hold your questions. So, next. So, I want to go back. Keep going. Just click through these. So, you have to have 3 records, guys. You got to have the ballot image. Well, we don't have that. You got to have the tape. We don't have that. You got to have the tabulation. Well, that one's corrupted. The only ballots that remain in this election are the paper ballots that are exactly tied. So that's our lawsuit. You cannot know the results of this election. And the big picture is this is going on all across the state. Okay, click one more. So I want to talk to you about Election Day and our tapes being printed. Because if you don't have tapes across Texas, we don't have a key back. We know there's no ballot image for any of the electronic voting machines in the state. That's off the table. So that tape is the only thing we have as backup. And you got to have the tape before the stuff goes down to the county and gets corrupted, right? So what counties are printing tapes and which ones aren't? You have 2 kinds of voting, countywide and precinct. Let's look at countywide. These counties are printing tapes. These counties are not for countywide polling, and there's no ballot image. Precinct voting, I'm going to add Bexar County here, that you guys do print the tapes. We also have big counties, Dallas, that doesn't print the tapes. Okay? Click one more. Click one more. I want to talk about early voting. Early voting, almost no county prints the tape. You've got no image and you have no tape. Okay, next. Next. All right, this is it. Almost there. Hang on. All right, I want to talk to you about how we vote in Texas. There's 3 times you can pick to vote. You can vote by ballot by mail, you can vote early, and you can vote election day. Okay, let's walk through these. Click one more. Ballot by mail, the computer adds up the vote, they scan it, but you have a paper ballot to go back to. Early voting. Next. The computer tabulates it. Well, click one more. There's no image and there's no tape for early voting. Next. Election day, this is Bexar County. Computer tabulates, click one more. No ballot image, and in some counties maybe you have a tape. When is your vote most secure? When's it least secure? When are we told to vote? Early. I want you to really consider ever voting early again. Because I'll tell you what, I've had candidate after candidate after candidate tell me they win here when there's a ballot, they win here when there's a tape, and they lose here, and they lose the election. And I'll give you a good example of this is a Houston mayor race. In Houston, the Republican won ballot by mail, he won election day because there's a backup record, and he lost early, and he lost the whole election. Candidate after candidate after candidate has told me this. I want you to really consider early voting.
Why can't these people file a suit?
We have, that's us. That's what we're doing. Hang on just a second.
We need to get to our next speaker.
Okay.
Respect for
So I'm here if you want to ask questions, and if you want to help us with our lawsuit, we need your help.
Miss Linda, I think you should take this to Mr. John Scholl. He's been through all that you've done 70 times to court.
Laura,
Let's talk after. Let's do that.
Well, what about these
Court
others
twice.
might like to see?
And it's just like yours.
Bless you. I'll be here after. And if you would be interested in helping us with the donation, I need it really bad because this is a big fight. And I have stamped envelopes if anybody wants to help us. Because we're it, guys. We're the first candidate and the only candidate that's ever done this. Bless you.
Thank you, Dr. President. Well, it sounds like we've got a Venezuela-style election process, at least for sure in Travis. I don't know about there. Old Soviet-style. No matter how you vote, you know, those in their power seem somehow to get almost all the votes. Anyway, just for your information, because Jack has been bothering me about this, anybody, we're always looking, you know, for new board members. Anybody has the time and would like to serve on the HTA board, please contact me after the meeting. one thing to avoid. If you work for a governmental entity, you don't want to be on the HTA board because you would lose your job. Okay, our next speaker has been going round and round with CPS Energy and the mayor's office. And it's all about the smart meters. We've heard before regarding the health issues of fire hazards, the rest of it. But this is more of a pocketbook situation. Stan, come on up.
My name is Stan Mitchell. I'm the numbers guy for the Streetcar Coalition, so I was particularly interested in Pastor Ripley's invocation. As an elder at Concordia Lutheran Church, I take his admonition to pray for our... What am I doing wrong? Better? Okay. I take very seriously his admonition to pray for our city government. I take it one step farther. Just as your best friend is the only one that tells you that you have bad breath, I like to think of the city government as my friend, and I don't hesitate to tell them that they have bad breath. It's been 6 months since we last reviewed the CPS Energy Smart Grid project together. There were 3 major developments since our last meeting. First, we met with the mayor and got her commitment to challenge CPS management to address our thoroughly documented financial concerns. Second, we shared details with the mayor that further discredit the smart grid project. And third, unfortunately, Mayor Taylor reneged on our commitment to meet with CPS management. That's it.
Surprise.
But the details are interesting. Thanks to the Tea Party, led by Alan Tharp, we met with the mayor on January 7th. This binder contains smart grid project details we have shared with Mayor Taylor. The title is Making Bureaucracies Accountable, because our problem is bigger than just the smart grid. You have a blue sheet. Let's go over it together. We begin with the CPS fairy tale, which we talked about at our last meeting. A less refined speaker would call this a lie, fraud, official deceit, and intentional misdirection. The point is that CPS's Chris Euchster delivered it, Cheryl Scully tacitly endorsed it, and Mayor Taylor bought it. My evidence has been that, quote, when people hide something, it's because they have something to hide, unquote. I learned that at the Yogi Berra Management Seminar. At items 1, 2, and 3, we see the development of the $285.5 million negative cash flow we saw at our last meeting. No one from CPS or city administration has ever tried to refute this assessment. As we learned last year, our last meeting, that the $285 million understates the net cost of the project's benefits. We'll never know by how much because CPS doesn't want to play the numbers game with us anymore. Following the April 10th meeting with Dick Slife and me, an August 3rd meeting with George Aleos and me, and an August 26th meeting with Rudy Garza and Kip Giles. Of course, I have never scored high in the plays well with others category. Let's go to item 4. The $660 million there understates the 20-year impact on consumers of the conversion from analog to more accurate digital smart meters. This refers to a Texas PUC commissioned study that bench tested new digital alongside analog meters and found that, by golly, those smart meters are really good. They measure more usage than analog meters. What does that mean? That means that when you put in your smart meter, your usage goes up by 2%. So that means an automatic increase of 2% in your billing. And spread over the 20-year forecast that CPS specializes in, that's $660 million of extra burden simply from the conversion of technologies. Item 5 speaks to the capability and complexity of the computer management of data collected by smart meters. If you'll go to the second page, we didn't have enough for everybody perhaps, but there's a white page. And it compares on the left some of the 12 additional functions that smart meters do that analog meters do not. If this comparison prepared by engineer Glenn Anderson me seems complicated, don't worry, the council doesn't understand it either, and they are paid to approve CPS rate increases. How will they do that in a smart grid environment where revenue generators are buried deep in layers of computer programming? I have no idea. Let's review one example on that spreadsheet, the second one. Load limiting critical peak pricing. As the renewables share of CPS's power generation portfolio increases, that supply becomes increasingly unreliable. Last I checked, the sun goes down in Texas and doesn't give us any solar energy through the night. Also, the wind doesn't always blow at the same rate. So because the supply at CPS Energy is becoming unreliable, they've shifted their focus to demand. And this line item deals with that demand. Load limiting allows CPS, through system programming, to assign to your household a power allowance. Then the indicated events would follow if you exceed that allowance. That is, you get extra billing as you exceed that allowance. But CPS wouldn't do such a thing. Would they? Sure. One more of these listed capabilities may explain why some homeowners have experienced enormous spikes in their utility bills immediately after it got their smart meters. Did system programming have a role? Does City Council know? How can we find out what CPS management's programmers have done to boost CPS revenue? We can. CPS and City together are using technology to support their tyranny. As I say, I've told them they have bad breath. Item 6 is a recent major issue raised by ERCOT. That's the Electricity Reliability Council of Texas. Quite simply, they're saying that when you mix reliable conventional power sources, that's coal, gas-fired, and nuclear, with unreliable renewables power sources, that's the intermittent wind and solar power, the statewide mix becomes increasingly unreliable. ERCOT has the responsibility to keep our Texas grid operating smoothly, but they lack the enforcement power to limit CPS's self-destructive renewables at any cost smart grid project implementation. So they threaten to require the curtailment of renewable generation resources. Are they saying that renewables are the enemy of reliable power? Item 7 is a very new study of the European Union's actual experience with renewables for the 10-year period 2005 to 14. As you can see, despite enormous expenditures, the European Union renewables thrust has been a miserable failure. You've seen the investment relatively among countries for a 5-year period. They spent $106 billion on energy subsidies. And despite this, worldwide CO2 emissions actually increased. at a 2014 rate of increase among 4 developing countries that was almost 8 times the EU's decrease. So, I wonder if we can learn something from Europe's ideologically driven renewables mania. To me, Mom's instruction is pertinent here. Quote, "Would you jump off the bridge just because all the kids are doing it?" Unquote. The answer from CPS Energy Block, based on their behavior, is a resounding yes. It has been said that, quote, "The easy way to learn is from others' mistakes. The hard way is from your own mistakes. The tragic way is not learning from either." Unquote. CPS takes this aphorism to a new, lower level. Quote, "Acknowledging the mistake, but continuing because stopping is too hard." Unquote. Rayford Smith, then CPS's VP of Corporate Development and Planning, I don't know where he is now, stated in the minutes of our August 3rd, 2015 meeting, quote, "If we have understated costs," which was the thrust of my presentation, "how would we stop such a massive undertaking?" I ask, does "it's too late to change" make sense to you? Item 8. This one is self-explanatory. I have a few copies of the letter here available for your inspection after the meeting. It's the one that reports to Mayor Taylor the fact that the funds that go from CPS Energy to the city, that funds a major part of our budget, is actually made up of 2 parts. There's the dividend that you would expect a utility to pay to its owner, and then there's all this other money that is simply an embellishment to the budget of the city of San Antonio. If you live outside of San Antonio, either because you're so far out or because you are part of a separate entity inside the boundaries of the city, are you aware that a significant part of your bill is going to support the city of San Antonio? That's what item 8 tells us. In summary, we taxpayers face 3 governance problems related to smart grid. First, our council members' job is to wisely spend our tax dollars, a financial function. Yet none of them has financial expertise. Joe Cryer, former president of the Chamber of Commerce, has no financial expertise, and the qualifications financially goes down from there. Consequently, they require Cheryl Scully's financial analysis and advice, which we have just seen is unreliable, if not fraudulent. That's why I've urged the mayor to hire her own financial expert who would report directly to her. The second governance problems we have is CPS Energy with its board of trustees is an organizational derelict, not accountable to any other entity. Oh, but you say, what about the board of trustees? Well, those board members are appointed by the board and, quote, approved, unquote, by the city council, made up of a group of people who are economic idiots.
You're right.
Economic idiots. They don't understand economics, but they're willing to endorse people to be on the CPS board. Locally, Mayor Taylor cannot fire members of CPS management or the board, so the city lacks control with CPS, and CPS is not regulated by the Texas Public Utilities Commission. So, CPS is a self-perpetuating bureaucracy accountable to no one. The third organizational problem we've got is when our elected officials focus on the care and feeding of self-serving bureaucratic monopolies like VIA and CPS Energy and maybe SAWS. Rather than on our citizens, the casualty is integrity. Without integrity, there can be no accountability. We will not get relief from CPS tyranny through the current city government, so we will have to look elsewhere. Our current effort is to seek, quote, equal protection under the law, unquote, from our state legislature. Here's a teaser from paragraphs B and C of section 11 of the Texas Public Utility Regulatory Act. A, public utilities traditionally are by definition monopolies in the areas they serve. As a result, the normal forces of competition that regulate prices in a free enterprise do not operate. Public agencies regulate utility rates, operations, and services as a substitute for competition. And our public agency is the Board of Trustees of CPS. And it is the purpose of this title to grant the PUC authority to make and endorse and enforce rules necessary to protect customers of telecommunications and electric services consistent with the public interest. But what if that municipally owned utility violates the Regulatory Act's purposes? Well, we'll find out. We haven't quit, but pray for a miracle. Righteous people in San Antonio stood against the streetcar with no reasonable expectation of success, and God gave us the firefighters' miracle. We pray for God's intervention in our righteous request for equality under the law against the crony capitalism of the tyrannical CPS city cabal, and expect God once again to intervene.
I have read those letters that Stan has worked so hard. They're really good. But I will assure you that neither the mayor's office or any of her bureaucrats will ever invite Stan to a wine and cheese party. They're brutal and they make sense, and he's right on track. But he's right. You know, this is the CPS feeds the city a tax, and it's like 14%, I believe, right around there. So that's why the city council is always for CPS rate hikes, because the money will flow into their coffers as well. Are there any announcements before I tell you about these hearings on your property taxes? Okay, I did attend, well, I'll start with the county. That was the first one. I went in there and carefully explained to the county commissioners during the hearing that, hey, and last year our appraisals went up about 11% on average. And I said, look, this is a tax hike, and you folks should cut the tax rate to offset that. Well, after I spoke, and by the way, 11% is a pretty big tax hike. One of the commissioners said, Bob Martin doesn't get the big picture. Well, I think I really did, because I'm going to have less money in my pocket, and they're going to have more of my money. It's pretty simple. The next day, the Express News prints a story and calls this a small tax hike. Then I go to the city council meeting, and by the way, just for your information, they hold these on weekdays during working hours where you can come. Of course, you have to pay parking. Who attends these meetings? Well, they're the various chambers of commerce, lobbyists, other big-time supporters of the politicians, contributors, contractors, and all those that feed at the trough. Ordinary citizens, not so much. The city, I make the same case. Hey, you guys are, this is an 11% tax hike, and you're talking about cutting it 1% roughly. Well, if your appraisal goes up 11, they cut the tax rate 1%, your taxes went up 10%, because 11 minus 1 is 10. So after I speak, and I listen to some other speakers, I jump in my car, I'm going home, I got it on WOI radio, and what's the headline? City Council cuts property taxes. Well, you can see this cabal between the elected officials and the media right away, okay? Well, it really becomes more interesting when I testified before the Senate Committee on Property Tax Reform. Well, Mike Amosquita sat there and he talked, he complains as usual about, you know, commercial doesn't pay its fair share. Scully gets in there and Scully says, well, you know, we cut property taxes. And we never raised property taxes, we cut them. And I'm sitting there stunned. I can't even believe she's saying this. It's an out-and-out lie. But this Senator Benacourt, who's the chairman of this committee, said, well, he said, Mrs. Scully, let me see. Do you know how much the appraisal district, how much the average homeowner's appraisal went up? No, she really doesn't know anything. And he said, well, I believe it was 10.7%, which is 10.7 or 11. Oh, okay. And then he said, well, you said you cut taxes. How much did you reduce the tax rate? Well, I don't know. And she had one of her lackeys there with her, and finally they concluded about a little over 1%. And Benacourt got straight to the point and said, well, Manager Scully, can you see if the appraisal went up 11% and you reduced the rate 1%, that that's a tax hike? And she hem-hawed, blah, 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 and finally she had to admit it. Okay? Then we get to a county commissioner. What's his name, Janet, that I told you testified? Well, he didn't. This is the council, the county commissioner from 2. Who? No. Who?
Chico?
No.
Tommy Calvert.
Calvert. Yeah, Jack was there. Jack was there. Well, he gets up there and says, well, we're not taxing these people. I'm serious. It's a heart attack, folks. And Benacourt was obviously stunned. He said, what do you mean? He said, they're not paying any taxes. They're making an investment. He said, they're investing in streets and drainage and blah, blah, blah. So just to let you know, you're not paying any taxes to the county. You're making an investment. So folks, that's what you're up against. And then you got their allies, the Texas Municipal League and TAC, the Texas Association of Counties. Well, they're totally against any kind of reform for property taxes, because then you'll limit the flexibility of these taxing entities to raise your taxes 10+% every year. And Senator Benacourt, and there was others, about 4 other senators there, responded. He said, look, this is unsustainable, which is right, because people's salaries have been either stagnant or actually been losing money against inflation for your average working family. And yet these taxes, hammer them again, and here you go. So this summer there'll be hearings at City Council, and you might want to come in, and I've attended so many of them over the years, it makes me sick, but I still go. It is really sickening. People with their hands out there. They always thank the City Council for funding their pet project. They never mention taxpayers. And I spoke before, I said, you know, do these folks know where the money comes from? Because they believe it comes from the City Council. Well, it comes off somebody else's sweat, blood, and tears, and that's your taxpayers. I know this has hurt for example, my daughter and son-in-law, they have 3 young kids. This is really a nightmare. My daughter says, Dad, she said, you can't believe how much my appraisal's gone up, my taxes. And I said, yeah, because mine has gone up as well. I don't think it went up as much as hers. But anyway, this is going on all across. Seniors on fixed income, the poor, you name it, they're all getting hit with higher and higher property taxes. And the Senator Benacord said this is unsustainable. But let me tell you, they're going to fight tooth and nail to make sure there's no reform. So, you know, it's us against them. I hate to say it that way, but it's government. You know, they feel like, they want that money and they need that money. And taxpayers be damned. You know, I don't know how they're going to pay it. Let them do without their medicine, you know, or let them turn their air conditioner up to 80. That's their view. They don't give a damn about you and me.
Why should Scully care? She's making $500,000 million.
Yeah, in fact, I think she's probably one of the highest paid city officials in the United States, if not the highest. Yes.
I attended that hearing, and I saw you there in January, the one at University of Texas.
Yes, I was there.
Amesquita and Uresti made presentations at that hearing that they had in January, where the Texas Legislature subcommittee. The most interesting thing about their presentations was Uresti was all about payment plans, and Amesquita, the appraiser, was a little more honest in the outcomes of the public's protest. And the most interesting thing he presented was an XY chart, and they did it on a 5-year plan. So the graph for the tax increases over 5 years was going up at a 45-degree angle. The line for protests, the taxpayers in the county who protested was level, and it was down at about 1 or 2%.
Yes, ma'am.
And then the line for the people who went to court was the same, and it was even way below that, below the 1 or 2%, and it was flat as well. But the interesting thing about the people who went to court was 90-something% of the people go, and the county settles out of court in favor of the taxpayer. So it's worth it to go to court.
Yeah, until you find out your attorney needs $25,000 retainer. I got bad news for you, man.
Yeah, I know.
I've been there, I'll tell you. It's a shock. Yes, sir.
I've got business, and when it comes to trying to value the real estate and what my taxes are, I said, okay, I paid this much for the land, I put these improvements on, and I've developed an RV park. And they're wanting to evaluate it at $1 million. And I said, no, this is how much it cost me. And they said, well, we're going to evaluate it for $388,000 because of the amount of money that you can make. And I said, well, I have a third of an acre out on the freeway. If I put a ROSPA stand on it, and I'm selling $1 million worth of ROSPAs per month, is that how you evaluate it? He says, absolutely. My appraisal now has doubled. My taxes last year were $11,000 on 6 acres. Now they're $20,000 on 6 acres. I've added one cabin of $22,000 and 4 bicycles.
Oh, I've heard horror stories. A lot of people are letting their property go. Because if they paint them and make the yard look real nice, and they're going to get hammered with higher taxes. So you're seeing neighborhoods deteriorate. And it's really sad. A couple more, and then I've got to adjourn because people probably have things to do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The next thing I've got on here is school taxes. Has anybody contacted the school?
I have been to school board meetings, opposed bond issues, organized. Let me tell you, the school districts take any of Northeast, North Side. They employ 12 or 13,000 people. You take those direct employees and their families, you've got an unbelievable voting block. And what are you going to do? They walk in with more votes than are actually usually cast in these school elections. It's terrible. Yes, sir.
I just want to make one sort of macro, big picture observation. If you look at last year's value of all the properties in Bexar County, and you add to that all the new properties were added this year, the overall values of all the properties in Bexar County have increased steadily over the last, I don't know how many years, because of all the developers. Look at all the land that's being developed around the county. That's adding more taxable properties to the tax rolls. That alone should give Bexar County a lot more tax revenue without raising it on the rest of us.
Yeah, well, it's puzzling because you hear them talk about, well, we want to just raise the tax rate to accommodate inflation and the new people moving out of the county. I've never been able to figure out how these people get by with paying no taxes.
Yeah.
How do they do that? Maybe I could move out and move back, and then I'd get off without taxes. It's insane. But, you know, they believe people are, you know, they don't know.
Well, Bob, we're paying more and more salaries to our public servants.
Yeah,
They
well,
have to cover that.
They work so hard, don't you think?
Yeah, $500,000 for our mayor.
Well, we gave a 4,000% pay hike
Scully has 10,
last year to city council. By the way, it was interesting. The people from on the Vista Verde property line, we were there opposing it, and all these people came down from Bass Rock. I mean, there was a couple of bus loads, and they brought with them a petition. And this is during the day. It was on I think a Tuesday, and we go into the city hall to give the petitions to one of the council members. There's no council members there. And then I said something to the effect, well, we've seen what we're getting for our money, and now we want our money back.
I can't imagine how anybody would have voted for that. It just forces.
Well, let me tell you, next May, city council comes up for election. And I personally, as far as I'm concerned, throw the rascals out.
Yeah.
Throw the
Don't vote early.
yeah, but do it on election day. But I'll be voting for change, because what we have now is corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse, you name it. So I'm not going to go with that. How can I help you, sir?
Well, I was just going to say, just one more comment to the things that this is my first meeting, and I appreciate y'all's organization.
Well, good. Join while you're here.
I appreciate that invitation. And so when you talk about the school districts on your property tax bill, you go to the next thing down, and that's the Bexar County Health District. As a surgeon and spending the last 3.5 years working in a very inefficient, wasteful hospital system that's funded by all of us here in the taxpayers, you're talking about Scully's salary. Look at the salary that's about 1.5 times that, and that's paid to the person that's running that hospital inefficiently, wasting money left and right. You can miss the things that you actually really need to take care of the patients, and that's on a daily basis a frustrating thing, because that's what we can find the heart to pay to help those who really need it, but when you have to spend and pay all this money to deliver all the care that's available to one person that may not be here, and this is not pejorative, this is just saying illegally, not documented or what have you, but the person from Comal County that's got a really bad cancer, you can't do anything for them, that sort of stuff, and just wasting spending. So I would, charge this group for really taking a look at that sort of wasteful, holding these people.
Sir, we've been down that road so many times. So thanks for communicating that. Gunnar Krelwitz, I don't know whether y'all remember Gunnar, he was a board member, he died speaking at City Hall against something they were up to. Gunnar and I went over to the University Hospital District Board, and we asked for tax exemptions, a tax freeze, anything, and Pivotal was the commissioner, and when they got done laughing, that was the end of the story. But let me tell you something about this hospital district. There is 20-something counties that are in this hospital district, University Hospital District. What is it, 21 or 22?
I'm not sure.
Oh, well, one thing I am sure of, how many of them do you think have a property tax to pay for the hospital? How many? 5, 3? There's 1. Welcome to Bexar County. And of course, we would probably use it more than anybody else, but we're the only ones that pay for it. Isn't that ironic that any county within 150 miles of downtown San Antonio is in the University Hospital District?
If they default, then we can't have no recourse.
Do you think they pay anything? Jack asked him how many patients were they serving that didn't pay anything, and he was called a racist. By who? Chico. Chico called him a racist.
Everything's racist when you question.
That's what they do, though. I'm used to it. I've been called racist, bigot, homophobe. You name it. But our next meeting will be in October. I hope to have Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck. If not, I'll get Hillary and whoever the Republican nominee is, assuming she's not in handcuffs. We'll have to rent maybe a little bigger venue. Yeah, anybody would like to donate to help offset the cost of the room? Jack has got a donation can there. Again, thanks for taking your time to spend it with us. It's encouraging. Grab some of these young people and make them get in here. You know, these young kids are getting killed by these taxes.